You're about to listen to my conversation with Manjas Lidder, the Managing Director of Lidder Care. In this episode, we discuss growing and marketing a care company in 2024, so there are plenty of key takeaways for care home marketers. Hope you enjoy. How do you go from film production to property development to running care homes?
Good question. It's running. I think running businesses is very similar. It's about looking after your people and making sure that your values are instilled and you have an ethos and a way that you'd like to work. So the care homes are our family business. My father is a retired psychogeriatrician, so he was quite forward thinking at that time, since the early 90s. Was seeing that there weren't many purpose-built care homes about. So he built our first service in 1994, just celebrated 30 years there. And what's quite nice is, some of our team members have been there for all 30 years, which is obviously a big dedication, a big part of anyone's life. So the care was the family business, but I come from a long line of medics. I didn't want to be a doctor. Bucked that trend. I knew one day I'd go into business. I'd like to think I always have that interest in how businesses operate and how they work. So I studied accountancy because I wanted to learn about the sort of the fundamentals of running businesses. And then I sort of fell into film production. I went to London, as many people do, working in Soho in advertising. And then I set up the first UK event for high definition technologies. Showing my age, and then went into working for independent film production company. And then when I relocated back to the Midlands, I set my own company up. Property development was always an interest. So my father pretty much designed both of our care homes himself, and then was in charge of the design team that built them. So a lot of those people that worked with him had either retired or were no longer operating or had passed away. So I wanted to build our own team. And I thought it would make a lot more sense to do that in smaller developments. So we started to buy city centre office blocks and convert them into residential apartments. And that's how that started. And it's a bit like Monopoly. Opportunities presented themselves. Obviously, when you're active in the market, a lot of the agents will come to you. So opportunities were a bit too good to say no to. So we've been doing that for 10 years. But that ethos was to build a team that could then be utilized to help develop our healthcare offering.
So let's focus on Lidder Care and let's get into the detail a little bit. What would you say makes Lidder Care stand out?
Our people, our values, our ethos. I used to ask my father, or both my parents really, when they set the care homes up, what's the business plan? What's the model? And the business plan was very simple. It was, we will provide the best possible care we can, and the business plan will look after itself. Now, obviously, we are now in 2024. It's a challenging climate. There are extra pressures, minimum wage, cost of living and everything else, as well. But that ethos hasn't left us. We will try our utmost to provide the best care we can. And the business aspects will always be secondary to that. We have to have a very good offering for us to have the occupancy levels and the reputations that we are very fortunate to have.
Perfect. You touched on it there as well. What have the main challenges been for you over the past few years?
Challenges, obviously COVID. Post-COVID, I would say actually being a smaller group, which is so focused, I'm not saying the larger groups are not, but we are so focused on our care delivery. And we have been researching things like our digital transformation. We've recently set up an auto attendant on our telephones, which will go, anyone who presses option 1, which is any new inquiries, goes through to a company a care specialist company that fields those calls. Within all of the team get a transcript of that conversation straight away. We've invested in a CRM system so we can track our inquiries. We've got a purchase order system which we didn't previously have. which is just trying to have the synergy between the two care homes. Each care home's always been encouraged to trade quite independently, because it's important for us that it's not one size fits all. What we do at each care home is very different. But then there are challenges with that, when you have got economies of scale and efficiencies of using the same supplies. So that's been something we've been trying to work on. But then now, we've invested in digital care planning. We've chosen Nourish, and we've also invested in a digital auditing compliance tool, which integrates with Nourish. So there was a huge amount of research from ourselves as directors into which is the best software to go in. We're not fortunate enough to have a huge headquarters or head office team. A lot of stuff we do ourselves, but I actually think that's a real positive of our operations is we are very aware of what our clinical teams need. We're at each one of our care homes multiple times a week. We have monthly management meetings, monthly meetings with our clinical teams, regular staff meetings. And I think it's really helpful for us to actually learn, the pains of running a healthcare company and trying to help people.
Having said all of that, what is your vision moving forward for Lidder Care?
Our vision is very straightforward: to continue offering the best possible care we can. We are quite fortunate that over the years we've purchased a lot of land around each one of our care homes. Our two care homes are actually within a 5-mile radius of each other. But the way that they're set up is Lowmore, which is our nursing home in Kirkby and Ashfield. That's a 48-bed specialist care home. So we specialise there. We are the only single-sex male-only unit in the area, which specialises for residents with quite, advanced dementia, with behaviours that challenge. We then have a 20-bed mixed nursing unit downstairs. So the male-only unit is 28-bed. But Newgate, which is just up the road, like I said, about 5 miles away, that's ground floor residential. And then upstairs is a very sort of bespoke and tailored space for dementia residential residents. So the two care homes complement each other quite well. So with us owning a lot of land around each of our homes, we've taken the decision to actually expand our offering on each site and provide more care solutions. I think post-COVID, I feel there's been a shift in the market. Obviously, we were bound by government legislation with restrictions on visiting, with safe distances. I mean, every care home we were having to find pods to have. It was not a very nice time. We were forced to have pods outside care homes to facilitate visiting. And I think that has changed a lot of people's thought processes on placing a loved one in care. I mean, we find now that our experience anyway is that people are staying at home longer and longer. So when they do actually come into the care home, relatives are amazed at how well they do. We have it commonly a lot with sort of grandchildren who may be working in different parts of the country who aren't able to come as often, and they will come and maybe after a couple of months or 3 months and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe Grand looks 10 years younger," because they've got interaction. We've got sort of varied activities programs, or visiting professionals coming in, and it can be very lonely being at home. But that's not to say a care home is the best solution for everybody. So one of the things that we are looking at the moment is going into home care. And that's not just, a lot of people will probably do this because they want almost pipeline into their care homes. For us, it's to just offer an alternative care. We have a lot of people who will come, especially to our residential care home, for respite. And we feel, and a lot of people's first interaction with a care home is when an elderly relative needs care. And they have absolutely no idea what goes into a care home. They're expecting to walk into a building where everyone's sat there plonked in front of the television. There's strong smells of urine. There is no engagement, and that couldn't be further from the truth with our care homes and many care homes in the country. There's so many care homes that provide such an excellent service. So for us, we are moving into home care to get our care into the community. And then that we feel is, leads on to people potentially coming to our care homes for respite stays, and then leading to when their care needs necessitate for them to move into our care homes. So for us, it's about, at the moment, Lidder Care is building an ecosystem of care so that within our local area, we are providing multiple types of care offerings. So on the Newgate site, so Newgate Lodge is a 60-bed home. We've recently got planning permission to extend the home to 84 beds. And what we are doing, we're not just, I mean, we've just had £250,000 refurb. So brand new sensory garden, upgraded communal spaces. We've got a whole new, a completely new dementia unit upstairs. And we've taken the decision to extend the home, but what we are doing is creating 4 distinct units. So it's not one huge home. We're seeing it as actually 4 smaller, offerings. And that's where, with us now investing in the CRM system, it gives us the ability to actually track the inquiry types that are coming and look at what the demand in the local areas. Obviously, we'll speak to commissioners, but commissioners can sometimes tell you what they want, but the demand might not necessarily be there. So I think with having the CRM, it allows us to find out exactly what those 4 units will be. And then on that site, we are now looking at building extra care, which is assisted living for elderly. And we think there's a huge synergy and a huge attraction in having independent apartments on the same site as a care home, especially if a couple was to come in. One partner, their needs might change and they may need to move into a care home. It could be that you utilize some of the activities offering within the care home for people that, who live in the assisted living apartments. But there is also a huge desire within the elderly to stay independent. And we completely respect that. It's very important to maintain independence, which we really encourage in our care homes anyway. But I think it's for us at the moment, it's about offering, like I said, that ecosystem in our local area, rather than just buying care homes up in different areas and just expanding that way. We want to really offer our community different options.
Yeah, it seems like such a clever play in terms of, obviously I'm an SEO, so SEOs will produce content across a buyer's journey. So from awareness, consideration, decision. And you're basically doing similar. You're covering each touch point along the journey of someone's care journey, and hopefully nurturing those people and their families into care. So, I think that's a really interesting play, because it's almost flies in the wind from what other care provider groups that I've seen and heard from. They seem to be expanding by buying other locations, other homes, whereas you've gone a different route. Why is that?
There's a number of reasons, and that's not to say Lidder Care in the future won't expand into different geographical areas. I've always had an interest in the care homes, but it was really important for me that I had my own company. Hence, I set my own video production company up. I set my own property development company up. It was important as well. I think when you work in a family business, there is the temptation to finish university and go straight into family business. And with the greatest of respect, the elders in the family probably look at them and think, well, what life experience do they have? Yeah. We've always done it this way. Why would we change that? And I think for me, it was an active decision that I would like to make my own mistakes. But when you run a company, you learn so much. I didn't know anything about VAT returns and PAYE and pension schemes and, all the other things that go into actually running a company. And I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. But then I also think that, gave me the ability that when I did make suggestions, the suggestions that I've made were taken seriously, because people could see that I ran successful businesses and still continue to do so myself. So I think to answer your question, Lidder Care will eventually, I think, move into different geographical areas. But our property development company has been trading for 10 years. We were very happy with what we were doing, and we still are, of buying sort of office blocks. There's a lot of empty, sort of 2014, 15, 16, a lot of empty office blocks, which were previously residential properties. We buy a lot of listed buildings, so I'm a bit of a sucker for period features. Yeah. But not, if you look at Nottingham, we're based obviously in the East Midlands, so predominantly Nottingham and Derby. They're city centre locations, beautiful buildings, high ceilings, but they've got huge car parks to the rear. A lot of them have got associated coach houses. The locations are brilliant. They're normally on tree-lined streets. So they lend themselves to being residential because they were built to residential properties. So we started off as property developers. We're very much clients. We work with some excellent builders, which I can't speak highly enough of. But I knew that eventually the aim would be for us to develop our own healthcare sites. So we took that plunge, and it was a scary thing to do. And many people said that we were a bit insane
Yeah.
and tried to talk me out of it from a good place. But in 2021, that company morphed into being a construction company. And I like to think it's one of the best things we did. So we had a scheme in Nottingham that was 2 floors of office to resi conversion. And then we built a 1-story roof extension on top, which is it's a steel transfer deck, clamping onto the existing steel frame. A huge amount of work went into getting that steel up onto the roof, city centre location. But I think it was a great one because I thought we're either going to sink or we're going to swim here, because it's such a complicated scheme. And I'm glad we did that. So, our own construction company has just done, as I mentioned, they've done a refurb at Newgate. We've just remodeled the entire ground floor at Lomond and created 6 extra bedrooms. So you can see inspectors actually did an inspection, which I loved because it gave me an ability to show them the work that we'd done, and they were completely blown away because we upgraded communal space, created additional wet rooms and bathroom space options as well for residents. So for us, it's not just a case of, right, can we add or plonk 6 more bedrooms in there? It's can we add value? Can we improve the service offering that we're doing? And that was a starting point. And if we hadn't been able to do that, I don't think we would have done the works, because I personally wouldn't have been able to justify it.
Yeah.
So again, with us now having that self-build capability, it gives us the ability to. There can be cost efficiencies, obviously, but it's more important for me is to have control on the product. Is to, as within the family, our first care home's 30 years old. I like to think in 30 years time, we still have all of our businesses. We're very much an investment model. And we always think with 10-year plans or 5-year plans at the absolute minimum. So by having that self-build capability, it allows us to have a much better product. And that's what we're all about, is having a very good product, which is always backed up by excellent people. And we're very lucky. I can't speak highly enough of our teams and how good they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see it where we are right now. We're in one of your homes to such a high standard, the decor, the refurbs, like everything about that. So I suppose you're using your unique talents and your skills and your experience to help your other business, the care homes, kind of prosper and thrive, because it is amazing.
Well, thank you. But the feedback we get consistently is, and I sometimes will wonder, because you see a lot of new homes, and not obviously, look, a lot of the new homes are absolutely brilliant. They provide the best possible care that you can do, which is paramount in our opinion. We have residents who will stay there maybe for 6 months to a year and then come to us. And you'll ask the family, you'll say why, and they'll say, oh, it was lovely, but it felt like a hotel. There was no engagement. There wasn't a varied activities program. Every room was the same. Our relatives didn't feel comfortable there. So for us, as much as we've invested in our homes, it's about making homely environments. So we've upgraded all of our communal spaces, but they're homely. You can add sometimes that wow factor to the entrance area, which I think is a nice thing to do. But the bedrooms are very personal. We will encourage our residents to bring in furniture. They choose the curtains. They all choose the colours. And every single bedroom is personal and individual. It's not one size fits all. And I think that's a really important thing. We always say, we work in our residents' home. They don't live in our workplace. And that's the ethos, I think, that you have to have. This is our residents' home. And a lot of times when we are actually working, obviously we have staff rooms. A lot of times when we're working in our care homes, we'll sit in the lounges. This is just a nice place to be. They're fun. You can hear this, our team's having fun with the residents. And, I like to just sit within the lounges and get my work done. Obviously if I'm on the phone and having meetings, that needs to be in a different area. But when I'm just, catching up with emails and stuff, we like to sit in the lounges. You can have a cup of tea with our residents. Well, I do coffee, but have a cup of coffee with our residents. And, I just feel, it's important for us to always bear that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even walking in here today, and like the vibe from everyone, the staff, everyone's friendly and just getting on with things. It's been a really nice kind of impression of Lidder Care. So
thank you.
Moving on slightly, obviously you've got your homes, and the newest area of business for you is home care. So you've expanded out to home care. You've set up that service now. Again, why have you done that? And the benefits obviously clear to see, but how does that differ from care homes?
Well, it's early days with home care, but we really feel that there's an opportunity to provide excellent care to people within their homes. Um, budget constraints. Obviously, a lot of local authorities have been trying to keep people at home as long as they can, because it can be more cost effective for them, and we understand that. Um, but for us as a home care company, we will try to move away from time and task. Is putting bespoke packages of care together. We are looking at how we can enable technology within people's homes, so that there is an ability for us to really gauge that person's journey, um, and predict things like falls, which obviously within the elderly we all know that you do whatever you can to avoid a fall, because it can unfortunately cause a very steep decline in a lot of our elderly residents, across the spectrum. But we really feel that what we do really well is care and provide care, and we just want to offer that to more people. Obviously, with care homes, there are only a limited number of beds. Occupancy for us, we're very fortunate, is very high. One of the things that I have been working on over the years is obviously we've got the SEO side of things, and one of the reasons we did that is historically all of our clients were through word of mouth, and still are. A lot of our clients still were through word of mouth. But again, it's just to help that buying cycle and decision making process. Is when I sort of finished my film production company. Again, I made the decision to actually finish all of our all the projects we were working on. It took us a year actually in post production to finish off every single edit or every single deliverable that we had. I wanted to make sure, and then because I was so associated with the company, I made the decision to actually close it rather than selling it on to somebody else. So that took us a year. So I full-time joined my father in 2018. We didn't have a website. There was no Lidder Care. You had two care homes that traded very independently from each other. Only a small, some of our staff teams didn't even know we had a second care home.
Wow.
Yeah. So, really a small number of people knew that the homes were linked. So one of the first things I wanted to do was create a brand. The branding guys talked us into using our own name. I really didn't want to, but they were like, look, it's got a nice rhyme to it. And obviously with my father's background, it would make a lot of sense. So they twisted my arm and I finally agreed. But we created a website, we created a brand. We started to then have a maintenance team, for example, that would cross both of our care homes, rather than them just being on each care home themselves. And then we looked at purchasing systems, purchase order systems that we didn't have. Each care home purchased with, things in a completely different way. There was no synergy with suppliers. And it was just building that ethos. Obviously, then COVID came a couple of years later. So it's been a steep learning curve. But I love working within the care homes. I love working within healthcare. I think it's such a dynamic and thoughtful workforce. And unfortunately, social care, and again, I speak from previous experience. I came out of university. I went to London. I worked in different fields, and I think social care has got an image problem. It's not something that's attracting the best graduates, which is a shame because I think it should be. Because I think it's such a rewarding career. So recently we've hired a marketing executive who comes from a home care background, who's a very good copywriter, and not really had experience of working with care homes. And you can see his face light up when he's with our activities team. And it's just, it's just a shame that we don't have more talented, younger people coming into our industry. So that's something that I'm actually advocating. We have recently hired a couple of people. So we've hired an in-house design lead who studied architecture, again, just to help us with our own schemes. Because you end up redesigning, I don't know about other people, but we end up redesigning a lot of what the architects do.
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, actually, rather than having that backwards and forwards process, why not just actually do it ourselves to a certain degree, and then you get them for construction phase onwards. And we've recently hired somebody who's coming in as an operations role as well, just to help the care homes in some of those things that normally a head office would do. But it's very important for us that our homes are well staffed. So each one of our homes, we have multiple managers who are supernumerary, and again, that's on top of our high staffing levels. But that's Lidder Care, and and as long as we can do, we won't want to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you pride yourself on these higher staffing levels
Yeah.
within the industry. Like, how do you maintain these higher levels?
Retention is key. Investment is key. Um, One of the things you hear a lot about at the moment is staff well-being, and I think we've been doing that for 30 years without realizing it was called well-being.
Yeah.
You know, it's just us as a company. We recently had some video content filmed, and I was obviously sitting at the back of the room listening to a lot of the interviews that our team members had, and I was blown away with consistently. I didn't know this, but consistently, how many times staff that have been with us for 8 years, 10 years, 15 years said the reason they came to us is because we're a family-run business. Yep. And they'd worked for corporates before, and they said, we're not a number. They know about us, they know about our children, our grandchildren. If we want to have a 10-minute chat, we can do. We see the directors every single week in the care home, and we just take that for granted. And I was actually surprised how many times it came up in the interviews is what it's like to work for a family run business. Because obviously, being a family run business, I can sometimes be envious of the corporates. And I think, well, surely you'd want to work for a larger company, with a huge head office support team and everything else, and the snazzy branding and everything else. So I was really surprised at how many of our team said that they purposely came to us because they wanted a family run business. So what our head of operations has recently become a mental health first aider. And we have, she's also my wife, but we have regular meetings with all of our staff teams where they can talk about, issues that maybe they don't want to raise with the managers. They want to speak directly with us as directors. That's really important for us. But it's also a great opportunity for us to get to know them a bit more as well, especially new members of staff who can sometimes be a bit shy. We can just find out little things about them. But we've tried to support, over the years. Obviously, we've had a lot of our staff pass away over the years. You've had people who have had tragedies within their family, diagnoses of serious illness like, cancer. And we just, we're all people, whether you've got registered manager name badge or director or housekeeper or, healthcare assistant, we're all people, and I think for us, it's about looking after our people the best we can. It's so important for us. But that, I think, and again, I know it's cliched, it's a bit cheesy, but I think that is what makes us, who we are. It's so important to everything that we do.
The family run side, I can fully understand that as well. When I've been on film shoots at other care homes as well, you often talk to the staff as well. They get quite emotional about the care industry and just caring in general and that purpose-driven element. How much of that drives your staff to do the job day to day?
Obviously, you're caring for somebody's loved one, and residents can be with us for a number of years. And I don't think, it's very difficult, I think, even for many of our relatives to appreciate the impact it has on our teams when somebody passes away. It's very, they'll see their grandmother in the resident, they'll see their mother, they'll see their aunt. And it's very difficult to, us as directors, and we come in and someone passes away, where they used to like sitting and they're not there in that chair anymore. It's, it makes, sometimes you have a lump in your throat, because, when you've got to know the family and you've got to know the resident over a number of years and their sort of, their little quirks and, how they like to do things. It's very difficult. Us as a company, we offer bereavement counselling. So with my father being, it's retired consultant psychiatrist, it's something that we offer for relatives as well. So we offer bereavement counselling for our staff teams and relatives. My wife, as I said, she's become a mental health first aider. She, at the moment, is doing a coaching course as well. And again, it's just so that we can support our teams. It's a very thankless task. And our hands are tied somewhat by the fee income that we can generate. It's not enough to pay our staff as much as we'd like to. I think that's across social care, and obviously there's an election looming, and we'll see who comes in. I think only the Lib Dems have actually addressed. I'm not for one second saying that I've got allegiance to them, but they're the only ones who have addressed social care. if you actually look at all the, I mean, the Green Party have, but whether some of their plans might bankrupt the country, that's a different matter. Let's not talk politics. But with the major, the parties of the major parties, they're the only ones who seem to have addressed it, and that's because the leaders obviously got lived experience. And that goes back to my point previously: is unless you've got experience with home care or care home, it's not something that most people think of. I went to a Langbuson event recently, and there was a very engaging speaker there saying when they had done public polling, social care, health and social care, private sector, not NHS, obviously, so social care, didn't rank in the top 15 topics the electorate cared about. And I don't think, I think it's just because, like I said, if you don't have that experience, you don't think about it. And obviously, like cost of living, taxes, immigration, all potholes, all these other topics were in the top 15, and social care wasn't. So, as a provide health, as a provider in this industry, it's our job to bang the drum as much as we can. But one of the things we really bang the drum about is our staff teams and how hard they work, how much they care. So, like during COVID, we had COVID at Newgate Lodge. We had COVID obviously at both homes, but we really got it bad at one point at Newgate Lodge, where we had over 40 staff with COVID who were off sick. So we had to lock the home down, obviously, and 10 of our staff members moved in and lived here for 2 weeks and ran that home for 2 weeks. I remember I used to drive to the end of the driveway and leave supplies, away, 6 feet away from the door, and speak to everyone through the window because we weren't allowed in. And at that time, this was quite early days, so we were buying. There was no PPE, so I was on eBay buying shower hats as PPE, and like you do, and kitchen gloves, as gloves, because there was nothing available. And trying to see what I could get, and spending £40 for a box of gloves. And that just shows you the commitment, and some of some of the team, we had to force them to take extra payment for that. We did we really wanted to reward our teams that did that, and they wanted just paying normal wages. They said, but you've worked 15-hour days, 7 days in the, and we had to almost force our staff teams to be remunerated properly for that work. But that just shows you how caring across healthcare, across care homes, not just our care homes, across many, many groups and many care homes, staff just really care. And that's why they do the job.
Absolutely. And I suppose it all comes down to people's misconceptions of care as well. And I suppose you seem to be putting quite a bit of effort into your marketing. You've hired a new marketing executive. Sure. You work with SEO agency. You've added stuff to your CRM for attribution, all sorts of things like this. You're coming on podcasts. You're talking to me right now, doing all of that. Yeah. Why the investment and why now?
We want people to know what we do. Consistently, the feedback that we get from relatives is, you should be putting this online. Why are you not shouting about what you do? So at each one of our care homes, we have activities teams. We have a varied activities program, which is across weekends as well. So the team members will share weekends, and it's very important for us to actually just show what we do. But also, it's a changing demographic, and we have to be mindful of that. As much as word of mouth is important, people, when they are making that buying decision, they want to go online. And it's human nature. You will look, when you go on carehome.co.uk. If I was putting a loved one in care, and location wasn't so much of an issue, and cost wasn't so much of an issue, meaning that there was cost the cost was quite similar across the board, I'd look at review scores. Who wouldn't? And then you'd probably shortlist which care homes you'd want to go and visit. And then it's, how are you welcomed? Is there a smell? What are the residents doing? Are they engaged? Is there an opportunity to have individual bedrooms? Are there multiple communal spaces there, or is everyone just chucked into one lounge? And these are the questions. Is there outside space? Huge one. And if there is outdoor space, is there multiple outdoor spaces? So these are all the questions that you would ask. Well, I would ask myself. But it starts from, which websites are presenting themselves to me first? And Care home, obviously, carehome.co.uk. It ranks for a lot of keywords and comes up quite high. But also, they are, us as a care home group, it's important that our website is coming up high. And when you go to Google Maps, our care homes rank top. But I think it's a worthwhile investment. And again, coming from many years ago, I come from an advertising and marketing background. I used to have a very quirky publisher. I used to think about marketing like spokes on a wheel. You could have one spoke and the wheel will probably get going, but it'd be a lot stronger if you've got 10 spokes, and you don't know which spoke is the one that, you can take the spokes away and all of a sudden it'll buckle. You won't know which one is the one that makes the spoke buckle. And I think that's, I think as a company, it's just, we've obviously got events where we invite the members of the public in. So recently we have the Alzheimer's Society have come in. We've had a menopause talk, which actually our staff teams really, they were welcome to join from both of our care homes. And they've really enjoyed that. We've had the dementia bus come in. We've invited members of the public to come in just to feel what it like, just so people can actually see what it's like to have dementia. And so that's obviously a huge part of things. Social media is a huge part, but also I think having an online shop front which demonstrates what you are providing is very important. And also it gives people the opportunity to have questions answered that they may feel a little bit shy or embarrassed to ask. And that's one of the reasons why working with you guys, we're doing the blog posts, for questions that we have people actually ask us, because we think, again, it's useful for people to have those answers, under FAQs or under a blog section, so that they know that information before they come to visit you. So then it is just about looking at your facilities and talking to your staff rather than thinking, well, I don't know how anything works. I think it's quite important for us as providers to give that back to the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, placing a loved one into care is probably one of the toughest decisions a family member has to make in their life. Like, in what ways can you help kind of aid that transition? And what ways can you help? It's almost at that pitch. Like, what would you say to family members when they're starting out and looking for care homes?
Go and have a look. Go and have a look. As simple as that. Go and have a look. Observe meal times. Some care homes, I appreciate. Some care homes don't like visitors coming during meal times because it can be a bit distressing. But just go and spend a bit of time in the home. See how you're welcomed. Have a look at multiple bedrooms. But go and look at other care homes. We encourage our relatives to go and look at other care homes. Because you need to know what's out there. You need to know what you're comparing. And if anything, if nothing else, it gives your decision, you're more reassured in your decision if you've looked at different options. So we will always encourage people to go and look at other providers. I think that's a healthy and a good thing to do. But go and have a look, turn up unannounced and just see how you're welcomed, see how people will show you around the care home. Have they got time for you? How are the residents interacting? And I think that's a huge thing in care homes. I personally feel is the interaction with residents.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Couple of quick fire questions to finish off then. What would you say has been or is the biggest achievement for you personally?
My children and my wife. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
So obviously my family. But apart from that, I think our property development construction side is something I'm very proud of. I haven't spoken as well. We also operate in hospitality. So we have a hotel apartment company, which I'd like to think offers, again, a very, very good quality product. But I think the proudest achievement for me is being able to really empower the managers and the teams that I work with to never feel shy about giving their honest opinion. We have very healthy discussions about things, and I encourage our team members to feel valued because it's so important for me. You don't take your car to a mechanic and then tell him how to fix it, So I'm learning every day. We all should be. We sit down, we listen to our, certain things that as directors we want to implement, or when you're sitting down with your finance team, you may think, well, actually, we need to reduce costs here. I'm also very proud that we don't set budgets on our teams. We all say, look, this is maybe what we should be working towards. It's not a hard and fast rule because there may be exceptions, in that month, and we discuss that with our teams. But we really value our the input from our team members. We really value I think it's a healthy environment when you can have real debate, um, and disagree with directors. I say, look, I'm not. I personally feel we should do it this way, and not feel that you're going to be judged for that. So I think that would be my proudest achievement.
What would you say the biggest mistake has been you've made in your career?
Oh, that's a good one. Hindsight's 2020,
Yeah.
so I'll take that with a pinch of salt. Potentially, I could have come into healthcare earlier. Post financial crash, a lot of care home operators at that time expanded aggressively. Land was readily available. We've never, as a group, across all of our companies, we are relatively risk adverse. We don't, because it's such a responsibility being a business owner. So we haven't got high loan amounts. We're not leveraged up to sort of, the eyeballs where all of a sudden you've got operational problems. It's all a house of cards. We're low risk, low gearing. We are slow but steady. So I think if you're from a professional point of view, if we're talking regret, I could have come into care and earlier. But on the flip side of that coin, as I said previously, one of my previous answers, is I made a lot of mistakes when I ran my first company because I'd never done it before. And I think it's you learn from mistakes. Well, I'm a firm believer that you learn from mistakes. People can tell you what to do, but until you've made a balls up of it,
Yeah.
it doesn't quite go in. So again, like I said, hindsight's 2020. But I'm just proud of what we do. I'm proud of our group of companies. I'm very proud of Lidder Care. I'm proud of the direction that we're wanting to take. The teams that work for us. I'm proud that it's with us. It's the carrot approach, not the stick. And that's very important. I think it's only so far you can go with that stick approach. So we don't have a regional manager. We have direct contact with our home managers and deputy managers. We're in each care home at least twice a week. There'd be more, but the managers don't want us here. We're just getting their way.
Yeah.
But no, it's nice. And again, I put my own grandmother. She had a stroke. We had live-in carers live with at home. She was a very fiercely independent lady. We had live-in carers at one point. I had 2 live-in carers with her. So that's 6 years. But then she had a fall, and she needed care, and we didn't hesitate to put her in our own care home. And I saw that delivery of care, and I would come to the care home. And obviously, care staff are very busy. They're so used to us. It's not like, oh my God, the director's here because he only comes once a year. I'm here all the time. So obviously, they say good morning, but they're not really bothered that we're here. And I would go to my grandmother's room to go and see her, and the amount of times there'd be a carer in there with her, just talking to her, or taking her a cup of tea, and I may have been sat in one of the offices for 3 hours, and I think, I better go and say hi to her, so I'd pop in to go and say hi, and there'd be care staff with her. And it's just such a reassuring feeling to know that, and again, you hear it consistently when people move into the care homes. It's such a relief for family members to know that there are people there 24 hours a day that are looking after their loved ones, and it's just that peace of mind to know that they're getting the care they deserve.
Perfect. And finally, what's the one bit of advice you'd give to someone looking to start working in care?
Make sure you have a caring personality. It's not just a job. With the greatest respect, you could go and work for the major supermarkets and make more money. The Lidls and the Aldis and things like that, they do pay more. Or Amazon, you can go to Amazon. It's not just a job. You've got to have that caring personality. And that, again, it's not just the care staff, even the ancillary support teams. I constantly will see our housekeepers having a chat with relatives, or our kitchen staff. So when a new resident will come in, the kitchen team will come in and sit down with that resident, get to know them, have a bit of a laugh with them so that, they let their guard down and really ask them what they like and don't like. Our maintenance guys, sometimes, obviously, if our residents have got capacity and they're able to do so, we'll help them, let them help with tasks.
Brilliant.
Obviously a lot of, especially in our male only unit, a lot of guys would probably have worked in construction or building or been laborers or tradesmen. So across across the homes, even with the support workers, be caring, and you tend to find a lot of people will come to care, I think, later on in their lives because they want to give something back, and it is so rewarding, it's so fulfilling, and every day is different, but it's also it can be mentally and physically exhausting, because it is very hard. It's long days. There can be a lot of compliance that you have to do. Hence why, as providers, we are trying to invest in that digital transformation, just to help our care staff. So one of the things we're doing at the moment, we've got the devices. So with the care plan, staff can talk into the device and it can write the care plan up. It's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Now, especially with care staff sometimes who are a little bit reluctant in writing down notes because they may be scared of spelling mistakes or, not knowing exactly how to write things in the best way. Or care staff who's maybe English isn't their first language, the ability to speak in a different language. So again, it's constantly, again, cliched. But in business, if you're standing still, you're moving backwards. And I think it's just really important to remember that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Manjas.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.